Well, good morning or good afternoon if you're joining us from Asia. My name's Tom Jenkins. We're going to wait a few seconds for the attendees to spool in. It takes about 10 or 20 seconds for everyone to join us. So we will just pause for a few moments while that occurs. Okay, we've got, I think, plenty here. All right, well, again, good morning, good afternoon. My name's Tom Jenkins. I'm here to welcome you to the Chinese webinar. This is partly in response to the Chinese European marketplace, which I think you saw a slide of slightly earlier. This is going to be taking place in Shanghai in May, and I hope as many of you who can come along to that event do so. It's our in-person event in Asia. It's our only in-person event in Asia, and hitherto has proved to be very successful. But there are more details of that, obviously, on the ETOA website. But I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a very distinguished group of panelists. We've got Chris Illingworth, we've got Bing Wu, we've got Rossella Pfundt, and we've got Keith Choi. And I'm going to actually ask them just to introduce themselves, really just do a quick lightning round, Robin, and explain what they do, and then we'll start going into the meat of the webinar. So if I may, just starting from the left on my screen, I've got Chris Illingworth. Chris.
Hi everyone, my name's Chris and I'm BDM, so Business Development Manager for Tours, Attractions and Activities at Trip.com. I've been with Trip for about 7 or 8 months now, but in my previous life worked with GTA and Kuoni Group Travel Experts and was always involved in the Chinese markets there as well.
Thank you. Bing, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. I am Bing from Vienna. I'm based in Vienna, but actually I'm working for the Chinese company named HCG, Huacheng, or maybe you know our brand ETI, with our lovely mascot, our Dragon Boy. And we are one of the biggest wholesaler in China, so we decided products, especially for Chinese market to Europe. So that's all.
Thank you, Bing. And Rossella, please, over to you.
Thank you, Tom. I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Rossella Pfundt. I'm the founder of the consulting company Success with Tourists from China. And my goal is to help medium-sized luxury tourism-related business to unlock the huge potential of the Chinese tourist market. If you would like to get more insights, I have also a podcast, Crack the China Code, where I share insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rossella. And Keith, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Tom. Hi, this is Keith Choi from Hiseas, and from Hiseas. Hiseas is one of the wholesalers in Chinese market as well, and we also got a strong foot in the Southeast Asian market, and we also looking forward to bring those customers from APAC region into the European tourism market. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Keith. And I realize I haven't actually introduced myself. My name's Tom Jenkins. I work at ETOA, and I have done so for a number of years. I think over 25 years, someone's pointed out, which makes me start to feel even older than I am. Right. Well, I think it would be great just to get a quick snapshot of what you think is happening in the Chinese market in 2024. And if I may, I'll start off with Chris. What's the prospect for Europe like this year, Chris?
We're very positive about the bounce back of the Chinese market. I think by October last year, we'd reached about a 70% bounce back on revenue on flights. Now, I know that's possibly overstated because the price of flights was more expensive than 19. So we're pretty positive that's continuing. Certainly through Chinese New Year, we're very positive with the results we've had there. And for my particular niche, we're actually ahead of 2019. So tours and activities is rebounding quicker for Trip than the rest of the market. And I think that's partly due to C-Trip putting a lot of effort into selling on the domestic market through the COVID years. And now that people are coming back into Europe, we're seen as a supplier of note for tours and attractions.
Well, thank you, Chris. Bing, is that your perception? Are we seeing a strong bounce back?
Yeah, absolutely agree. We can see that Chinese market is recovering very, very well, and we hope that for this year, 2024, we can even reach 60 to 70% compared with 2019.
Right. Okay. And Rossella, what is your perception?
Yes, the Chinese outbound tourism market is bouncing back for Europe. And it is really remarkable that the tourists coming here to Europe are spending more, right? So they have a bigger spending power. From the volume, we see less. But from the spending power, we can see that we already reached the numbers from 2019 regarding the Chinese New Year travel period, for example.
Good. Keith?
Yeah, I would say same here. According to the capacity of the flight, that I would say most of the European destinations' capacity is recovered is 2019 peak. Even like UK has even surpassed the 2019 peak in terms of the flight capacity. So we remain quite positive toward Chinese market, and we do believe there's going to be a good bounce back from the Chinese market.
I know that's interesting because because one of the big suppressions last year was flight capacity. It was under 50% of what we were carrying in 2019. It's very difficult to reach 2019 figures if you can only bring half the number of people over that you brought over that year. But you're telling me in broad terms that flight capacity is broadly back where it was in Europe, notwithstanding the difficulties they've got in terms of most of the European national flag carriers not being able to fly over Russia. Is this what you're finding, Chris?
Yeah, pretty much so. I think the 50% figure is a little understated because it's an annual figure.
Yeah.
And obviously January, February, March 23 was way below that figure, so drags the figures a little bit down. I think 24 we're going to be seeing closer to, I would say, closer to 80% overall into Europe.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a very strong platform there. Are they? I'm going to try and mix the conversation up a bit, so to speak. Do you think these people who are arriving in Europe are requiring anything different from what they wanted in 2019? Is there any? Has COVID, for instance, made them more cautious? Are they coming in smaller groups? I've got no idea, but you are the guys with the idea. I'm just intrigued to know if the Chinese require anything special or different in Europe. Keith, do you want to kick off? Because you always come up at the end at the moment. So why don't you start at the beginning?
Thanks, Tom. Well, I'll just say something on the perspective of a wholesaler, I mean, in terms of the group seller. And I do believe our perspective will be quite different from Chris's, because Chris is looking after more the FIT market. So as far as we can observe that, for example, during the winter of 2024, which is the past January and February, I would say in the UK destination, it's quite popular, but mainly for the educational sector tourism. But as a traditional wholesaler, tourism wholesaler, we're not really touching that bit of market yet. But I would say that the segments, or say the niche market in the tourism, broadly sector speaking, the groups will return, but most of the groups gonna return in a different way, like in the educational sector or in what Rossella mentioned, the luxury sector. So I would say the market is diluted a bit for us as a wholesaler, and educational in the UK will be one of the main thing, and also luxury will be another one.
So you just in your business, you're saying that the educational is performing strongly, luxury is performing strongly, and that there is group traffic, but you're seeing mainly the group growth in those other areas. Rossella, is that? I mean, you're obviously dealing with a very different market, which is the luxury leisure market broadly.
Yeah.
But are they requiring anything different? Is there anything, I suppose, our suppliers who will be tuning into this webinar thinking, oh, I've got Chinese groups coming. should I do it? What should I do? Do I do what I was doing in 2019? On a mundane level, making sure that they all get hot water when they sit down at the table. You know, what, or are you giving any different requirements to instructions to your hotels?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're much more demanding. So that means that they're looking for high quality, and the standard did also increase. So this is something what really, because you have also to see the people who can now afford to come to Europe are really the very luxury one. As an example, Tom, and for the audience to understand, the prices for a 1 week, for example, to Milan before COVID, nearly doubled. So that means only the people who have really that are super wealthy can at the moment afford to come here. And they have another level of standard what they are used also in China, because in China also the hotels are very luxurious and they have very good service. So that means the hotels need to adapt to this high standard what Chinese are used, and to satisfy their needs. And also there's also that they're seeing that they want also a little bit different. They are more also into nature at the moment, right? And also what they also appreciate is also wealth. So that means physical wealth, right? So that this is all new after COVID, that their needs did differentiate, and they are also interested in these kind of things, which maybe before COVID was not so important, and now it's very important also.
That's fascinating. I think that, I mean, I believe what you're confronting is not a standard problem, but it's a problem that we have to get more and more used to, which is that people traveling broadly from Asia, and it's a very sweeping statement, particularly from markets like China, markets like India, they can buy outstanding levels of luxury in their home market for comparatively small amounts of money. And if they're buying, if they're going to buy luxury in Europe, they're going to be paying way more than they're paying in their home market. And they expect to receive way more for this money that they're spending. So we can get these customers, but they will be demanding. And even if we're providing, if there is such a thing, a standard 4-star hotel in London or in Paris, the people who are selling this standard 4-star hotel are paying what they think is super luxury prices. So it almost means we have to raise our game. But we'll get on to that in a minute. Bing, just out of interest, is there anything that you're seeing that's changing from your client base?
Yeah, according to our experience from last year, and we can see that the group size is much, much smaller than 2019. And we have some statistic about 53% group from our company is around from 10 to 20 packs each group. And the speed of traveling from China is also more slower than before. And I remember that last time, the same webinar about Chinese market back, and some friend has asked me if Chinese are back and were they still traveling in 2 days, 3 countries. And I'm happy to say today that now we have changed, and we can see that many groups will stay in some main cities for even 2 or 3 nights for once. So this is a big difference.
Well, they're slowing down.
Yes.
I'm one of the few people who approve of fast tourism, but I appreciate I'm in a minority, Bing. I think that's very interesting. Bing, can I just ask one question? When you say the groups, you know, over half of your groups are between 10 and 20 people, are these groups sort of wider family groups of people who know each other and traveling as
No.
a large group, or is it? Or are they
Because
actually sold as a small group?
Yeah, this is just sold as a size to different travel agents because as wholesaler, we are selling our products to different agents. And so not maybe, especially during the Chinese New Year's festival, of course, a smaller size group is always content with the family members or friends. But in general, people in these groups are just joined in.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
in the current environment, the good news is smaller groups are easier to place, as
Mhm.
everyone would say. Chris, over to you. I mean, is anything changed in terms of the nature of demand, what these people are acquiring in 2024 to 2019?
I think I'm going to echo a lot of what the panelists have already said. So rural tourism, definitely a big thing for us. People looking for higher quality and unique experiences. Again, coming with that slightly higher level of traveler. That's definitely something in there. We've seen, certainly in London, the growth that we're seeing on the hotel side is in the 4- and 5-star properties. They're the ones that are growing faster than the rest of the properties. But yeah, it's looking for that customized travel products, high quality, unique experiences, and very much so social media led. So influencers, people buying from when influencers are pushing particular products or particular places, that's definitely a thing we're seeing there.
Okay, that's interesting, but we're not seeing any dramatic change in the requirements that they need. They're still broadly the same people that were coming in 2019. They're not demanding anything in particular. I'm just wondering, do you think it's very difficult to generalize, and I'm going to start with Rossella now because you're there. You said already that people are prepared to pay the quite high prices. Do you think there's any suppression on demand? Because the prices we're now going into the Chinese market with in 24 and in 25 going to be very, very different from the prices we were citing in 2019. You've said in some instances they're doubled. Do you think there's any suppression in demand from these prices, or people just saying that's what it costs? What is the reaction?
Yes, I mean, this people who are coming, these are really the super wealthy and they can afford, right?
Yeah.
And traveling is for them also something what they now enjoy. You must see it like this, Tom, they could not travel for quite a long time. And this was missing for them also, this experience to explore, right? And this was not possible for them. And now they are so happy also that they can do it again, right? And to travel. And what is also very important for them is not only traveling, but also enjoy the possibility that they can experience here, to be in Europe and to also this first-hand experience. And also for the women, very important to go shopping here in Europe, right? In these big cities, Milan, Paris, London, right? This is also something. So no, I don't think the people who can afford, there's nothing what they will do it, right? And they're ready also to do it and spend money.
They've got the money, and we forget that China has still maintained, by Western standards, not by Chinese standards, spectacular economic growth over the last 4 years, and they haven't been able to come over here. I mean, Rossella is implying, Keith, that what we're looking at is a sort of Chinese version of what they were talking about in America, which is revenge tourism. I've been locked up now for 4 years. Now I can go. Do you think this is happening?
Actually, I'm going to propose the same question to Bing because we're both working in the Chinese market because we both expecting to see a so-called revenge bounce back. But was that revenge really happening? I do know that in the short-haul destination like Southeast Asian, like Japan, especially in Japan, that actually got a really, really good inbound tourism from Chinese market. But we've actually still waiting for the Chinese so-called revenge tourism. happening last year. I understand that in last year, there's loads of, especially, extraordinary circumstances was happening, like in the first half of the year, we short of visas and short of flights. And the second of the year, we short of holiday days. Like the holiday already started, that is quite late to organize the tour. But will the revenge bounce back happen this year? I'm actually holding the question mark, but I do have a strong faith in it.
Do you think that's the case, Bing?
Yeah, I'm also holding the question mark, especially the payment availability from our customers, because people's income still affected by post-pandemic economic factors. And yeah, I think that price for this year will be lower than last year. This is my opinion, because now flights capacity is increasing. Amazing, yeah. And we see that maybe from May this year, it will be fully recovered. And that means the price, the fare of flights will be decreased. That means our products, the price is also going down. Well, of course, people are demanding more. Just if they, we still consider that maybe this is just a part of our clients, and many 70 or 60% at least people are still waiting. They have the waiting to travel, but how much they wish to pay or they can pay is a question.
Yeah. Okay, I think and do you think prices? Well, price is always a factor, Chris. And speaking as an, if I may use the phrase an ex-wholesaler, you're especially if you work for GTA, you will be not unfamiliar with the fact that price is often a factor when dealing with agents and other business-to-business players. But do you think it's proving to be not as significant as we thought it would be? I think is the right way of phrasing it.
I think that's probably a fair way of phrasing it. It's not a help, though. You know, and I think just going back one thing, someone was just talking about shopping.
Yeah.
The UK news are not repealing the 20% VAT refund in the latest budget is a real kicker for the UK. I think that would have been a really good message we could have gone out to the China market with. And again, it affects price because it's not the price of the package, but it's the price of what you're going to pay whilst you're here, which would have been useful. But yeah, you're right. It's not as big an influence as maybe the wholesalers had 5 or 10 years ago. But wholesalers have always paid the market rate. They just push for the cheapest in the market.
Yeah.
And Bing's right, the flights are coming down. I don't see the hotel pricing dropping anytime soon, and I think that's going to retain the pricing at a higher level than it was pre-19.
I mean, you've raised. I think it's a given. I anecdotally, I was a friend of mine was on the London to Paris Eurostar, and they were traveling alongside 2 Chinese people who were going over to Paris from London for the day, specifically to spend over $3,000, $4,000 on luxury goods in Paris, because they would save a lot of money, much less than the cost of the Eurostar ticket. And
Yeah.
they could see Paris too. So I can see it's a real problem. I just to make sure that our perception of this is right. Rossella, do you think the 20% non-refund in London is having an impact on demand?
Absolutely. I think the retailers in London are already realizing that the Chinese shoppers are not back, and they replace their shopping now, and they're going instead to Milan or to Paris. So this is a huge, this is a huge effect for all the retailers in London. They're realizing this, that the shoppers are not back, right? And I think there's also some, the shoppers in will not come back, and they instead go to other European countries to buy there.
Yeah, I think. And do you think this is this a trend we're seeing, being that the UK is losing out because of the taxation treatment of shopping?
Yeah, for as wholesaler, because before we have so many shopping contracts with merchants, and now we created not created at all, yeah, but just it's up to the lucky if customers wish to buy without tax refund. But
Yeah.
this is really a big effect.
Yeah, big impact. And Keith, are you sensing this? I know you're very much based in the UK, but is this what's happening?
Yes, you're right. I'm currently still looking after the UK and Ireland market and based in London. I can definitely tell that the 20% VAT non-refundable definitely will give a negative impact on the Chinese tourism coming in. Well, compared to, UK was also known as its rather higher spend than any other destination in Europe, like in France. So literally in 2023, people spending less going to France will even get a good bargain to buying luxury goods than paying more spending days in London. So I would say in terms of the main purpose of a Chinese outbound tourism, shopping is one of the main reasons. And the UK is not capable of returning the 20% VAT will harmful for the Chinese coming in.
I mean, we have other members. I mean, Bicester Village, for instance, they're not just realizing it now, Rossella. They knew it the moment that announcement came out. It was fairly radical. Okay, I mean, we've touched on visas. I'd be very interested to hear what. I don't want you to compromise your relationship with anybody, but it'd be interesting to see how well you think European consulates and embassies have responded to this rise in demand. Are they able to issue the visas? What can we do to improve the process, I suppose, is the question. Ben, can I ask you that question? Have you got any idea how well visa processing is going in China? Is it proving to be a block?
Yeah, it's a big question because different councils has different policies. And yeah, in general, it's a big still task for us to figure out how we can have the quickest solution with our concerts to have the visa. And sometimes even the speed is really much too it's too slow, yeah. And we really have to be patient and to yeah, this is a little bit for me is how to say, it's unsensible, yeah.
If it's any consolation, it has always struck me as crazy, but that's neither here nor there. It's one of the great nightmares of selling Europe as a destination throughout the world. The only good news, and I would just use this as a consolation rather than the solution, is remember what a nightmare it was before they invented the Schengen Visa, where you had to get a visa for every country you visited in Europe. It would take you up to 8 months to do the visa processing to do a European tour. But it's still nothing like as good as it should be. I mean, Rossella, I mean, you've got high-end clients. Is this proving a block for them, or can they find ways around it?
I mean, there are these countries who offer the golden visa, right? Like Greece and Malta, right? And these are way around it when they're doing this. So that means they're buying property there. And then they got this golden visa, not only for them, but also for the whole family. So yes, to answering your question, there are always for these luxury clients, they are way around that they can find a way to get the visa.
Yeah, that's good. It just involves spending a few €100,000. Yes, I know. That's one way of solving a problem. You're right, Keith. I mean, we're very conscious in the UK that the UK is very much on its own It's a sort of an archipelago that's voted for an appendix, really. No, that's not the right horrible mix of metaphors. But the it's very isolated. Do you think the UK suffers disproportionately because of needing a different visa from the rest of Europe?
Oh yeah, Tom, what you mentioned is another really interesting topic, although that would be too high in terms of moving level up to the European level to talking about this issue. But as you mentioned, there will be a really, really ideal itinerary, like they spending tourism days in London, then take a Eurostar going to Paris and finish shopping there. But what's happening to obscure such an ideal itinerary from happening is because if you're talking about Chinese market, they have to apply 2 different visas. And one visa took about 2 to 3 weeks, another visa is 6 weeks. So combining them together, will be a month and a half to 2 month period purely for applying for their visas. I mean, Chinese group, their decision time, I'll say the confirmation time of a group normally is happening about 2 months or 3 months in advance. That actually in a quite ideal scenario. But that 3 weeks is purely for our client to collecting their customer and also helping their customer to getting visas done. So because Chinese, they pretty much need 2 visas to finalize a UK and European itinerary. That's the reason why there's a really less people will go to UK with another European country because of the visa thing. But if you're only talking about UK visa issue, I would say the issue is have improved. Well, it's good improved than 2023 because you know what's a nightmare situation was happening in the UK 2023. There's a short of capacity and really lack of viewing of the visa screening slots, things like that. But in this year, because UK was having its own ADS visa in very short terms, and that will help our group organizers in terms of getting their visa done. So compared to 2023, the situation was changed and towards a better destination. But if you're talking about will the Schengen UK 2 different visas stop people traveling the UK select another destination? I would say the answer is solid.
Yes.
So that's the situation in the UK, as you said, it's an isolated situation. And I do wish if that works, UK can join Schengen Visa or say Schengen zone, give an exemption to the UK, like what's UK Ireland. Well, the agreement.
Can I just say what an interesting idea. I'll come back to you're leaving me stuttering for words because all the pressure that we've been exercising is to try and persuade the UK to recognize a Schengen visa. Nobody's ever thought of asking the EU to recognize a UK visa, but that might be a very good point. Okay, Chris, what's your take on this? I mean, have things improved since last year? Because we heard horror stories last year.
I think last year we were in the situation where where it was becoming very difficult to get an appointment for a Schengen visa, and the UK visa was easier to get. So the UK bounce back was a little bit quicker. I think going back to that UK and Schengen thing, the thing I would really like to see from a personal point of view is that not that we recognize that and allowed it for travel, but that you could automatically get a UK visa if you had a Schengen. You didn't have to go through the whole application process again and vice versa. And I think that might be easier to accept for both sides.
Yeah,
you still have the payment and you still are paying twice, but at least at that point, the similar checks are being done.
I think the point being that the hope is perhaps to get them to recognize that it qualifies for a visa waiver.
Yeah.
The destination's still got the right to refuse entry, awkward though that would be. But for the vast majority of people coming in, they would go, okay, you've got that visa, that entitles you to a visa waiver for us. I think that would be a very I don't know how we solve this.
No, I'm going back probably maybe 15 years, Tom. I remember going to Brussels with you, and the point from Brussels was that visas were seen with immigration, and it's very hard to discuss with international governments because they see it as immigration.
Yeah.
And until that separation is made mentally, it's going to be very hard to progress very far.
And it will be almost impossible to do so. I mean, I agree entirely. I think that what's interesting about this is that all the information we have is that the price is a factor, but it's nothing like as much as a factor as the bureaucracy and difficulty of going off and having your in-person interview. Is that something that strikes you, Bing? I mean, you watched this happen on demand, but the fact that people have to go off, be interviewed in person, give biometric data, this is a real block. Is that the case?
I want to also add one more thing about the visa. So it's okay. Because what we know is that there are total, I think, nine countries, Chinese, one side to have the visa free for 9 European countries, people to enter China. And that means China is showing this big wish to have more convenient solutions with a visa to European countries, to China. And so another side, we hope that the European countries, they will help them also to be more convenient for Chinese citizens to travel to Europe. But I don't think that UK is on this list. I'm not so sure. Or do you think will still apply for visa to China in May? Tom?
I don't know. In terms of accessing China, I mercifully have a 5-year visa, so I don't need to worry about it. But I think you're asking whether the UK will be added to the list of people who can go to the UK visa.
No, I mean visa free for UK people, for British people to China.
Yeah, I don't know whether, I have no idea. It's in the hands of the Chinese rather than rather than the UK, I think. And the big problem we have everywhere is that visa offices also do revenge visas. It's like revenge. We have revenge tourism. We now have revenge visas, where certain consulates duplicate the requirements that are required of their nationals. So you will notice that when I applied for a Russian visa, I suddenly found myself, I am the only country, I believe, that has to do this, filling out a Russian visa application that looked every bit as exhaustive as a UK visa application. I had to list all the countries I'd been to in the last 3 years. This is not easy if you're running a trade association for tourism. So no, I mean, I share with your frustration, Bing. It's a horrible bureaucratic anti-welcome to a destination to ask people to go through this process. And if we can simplify it and streamline it, so much the better. And I note that on the question and answers here, we've got someone writing in to say that an agent in Canton was wanting to bring 20 people to Italy, but they still can't get an interview from the embassy so far for a departure, which is already in May. So they're starting to panic. And it's shocking that we have a system where we have known business on the books, and yet the clients are placed in this situation where they're in a desperate quandary as to whether they're actually going to be able to travel. To me, it's almost unforgivable, but that's where we are. Right. One last point on visas is really interesting. If you look at the UNWTO data on the countries that did really well in 2023 from China, there is one standout country in Europe, and that is Serbia, because Serbia does not require a visa from Chinese nationals. A boom time for Serbia from China. Now, other than Serbia, have we got any destinations that are doing really well this year?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose can I start with you, Rossella? Where are you
Yes.
taking people? What is there not a surprise, but where is the bulk of the traffic going?
This is, for example, now for Chinese New Year, right? We have seen that, as you mentioned, countries with a no visa did amazing well. For example, Uzbekistan did very well, right? And they increased massively, right? So it's really important to see if the requirements are less, right? The demand is exploding, right? And this is really a very interesting fact. So if there would be possibility that the countries in Europe do reduce the requirements for Chinese visitors coming here, this would really enable the businesses to benefit from the huge demand, right? Because all countries, as you mentioned, Tom, which did some passes in the last year regarding helping the people that they don't need all this issues to filling out forms, and a lot of requirements, they could benefit. They got a huge demand. So this would be really something, if the European countries could do this, that would be really very helpful. Besides these countries, which has no requirements right now, we are seeing also that who's getting also a lot of demand are the northern countries, right? They had now during the Chinese New Year period really huge demand, but also the, let's say, the countries which are always high in demand are France and Italy, right? These are always high in demand for Chinese visitors coming.
Okay, thank you. Bing, what are the top sellers at the moment? I'll rephrase the question. What's doing really well?
Well, this year, still the western part Europe is still our main target, because 2023 we can see that compared to 2019, the people traveling to Western Europe, including Italy to France, has decreased really too much. And this year we hope that the Chinese market can be back to this part. And so far for the Northern Europe, especially to Iceland and to Norway, Sweden is high demand. And this year we think that in the summer, because maybe we for 3 to 4 weeks, we should avoid France due to Olympic, and most people are also going to eastern part.
Okay. Chris, have you seen any natural winners at the moment?
For us, Switzerland, Spain, UK, and France seem to have seen the biggest bounce back so far.
Yeah. Right. Good. It was very snappy. Keith, I'm going to twist the question slightly to you. I'm just interested if you're looking at the UK and Ireland, which I appreciate you're a specialist in. Is there any areas of the UK and Ireland that are surprising? Obviously, London will be doing well. I imagine Dublin will be doing well, though it comes with a price tag, as does London, I hasten to add. There are other cities with hotel issues, I might say. But are there any regions that are coming forward that are surprising?
Although you're asking something surprising, but I'll give you a non-surprised answer, which I mentioned even last year, is Edinburgh, right? Edinburgh, obviously, like what Bing mentioned, that Western Europe is one of the Chinese main destinations. But in this year, during the summer, which is the peak season, because of the Olympic Games, bring all the price sky high. That's loads of tourism being diverted into different destinations, which being mentioned is Eastern European. But as far as I observed, is UK and Ireland, right? But during that period is also one of the most ticketed event, which is called Edinburgh Festival, which will be put on show, I mean, during that particular period. And Edinburgh is famous by its short hotel capacity. So loads of tourism, they already can't find a proper accommodation during the normal peak season, not to mention we got the incremental tourists from the Olympic, which diverted them to the UK tour. Well, once you go into the British Isles, there's a 3 points you must see. There will be London, Edinburgh, and Dublin, right? Although there's not that many group tourists will doing a UK Irish tour like what they did in 2019, but Dublin it retains its popularity in this year, I would say. There's still got the price problem, but tourism, they say, well, I'd love to go to see Ireland in this year. Although it's a still rather small percentage, but it's actually counts for some numbers. So London, Edinburgh, and Dublin were the 3 main destinations. And apart from these, if you're talking about some like a surprisingly a different destination, I would say just like what Rossella and Chris mentioned, that the Chinese tourism, they're trying to figure out some unique experiences. So for us, we're really amazed to see that some of the agent, they put Fountain Abbey, which is another UNESCO World Heritage in the UK, in the north part of England, but it has been ignored for long ages, right? But surprisingly, we see that some of the agents put that on itinerary. That's what we see, that people trying to find out some well-hidden gems in their traditional UK tour.
Thank you. I mean, it's the first time I've heard the word Fountains Abbey and Chinese tourism mentioned in the same breath, but it shows you the power of the UNESCO World Heritage List, that people will stop and look at it.
Tom, can I just add the other one?
Over to you, please, Chris.
Quite surprising, and I know Amy Jones is on the call, is Castle Howard, which has a really big following in China because a famous pop star, JJ Chow, had his wedding reception there. And then they picked up huge numbers through that. So that's talking again to that influencer thing and being how you get your name known in China, making a really big impact on visitor numbers.
Yeah. Well, that feeds into another question we got given before the just before, and incidentally, do post questions in the Q&A area if you've got them. We've got sort of statements flowing in through the comments, which is probably the right place for them. But we've also got questions being posed in the Q&A, and that always makes life a bit more interesting. One question I was asked was, how is the demand for leisure travel in France outside of Paris? And someone said, especially in the Loire Valley and the Alps. The Loire Valley and the Alps are not connected in any way, but they, I'd be intrigued to know the answer. This, I suppose, is what impact is the Paris Games going to have? And a number of you have touched on it, but I will, I'll start, if I may, with Rossella again. Rossella, are you seeing, what do you think the Paris Games is going to do for demand in France?
I think there will be a high demand in France because these kind of Olympics are always also very interesting for Chinese visitors coming. So I think the demand will increase this year also, but not only because visitors are not only coming to Paris to see Paris, yes, sure, for the Olympics, but they are also interested more because they're in the countryside. So to answer your question, Tom, I think also not only Paris will benefit, but also the surroundings can benefit from the visitors coming this year for the Olympics.
Rossella, thank you. I think that's admirably counterintuitive, which is good. And it's good to hear that the top end of the market, which you represent, regards this as a plus. Bing, do you think this is going to be the case, or are people going to be put off going to Paris and France?
Of course, yeah. But I also have one question to ask our friends, maybe especially from Paris here now in our webinar. Is it still true that in fact, indeed, the Olympic game is just affected. For Paris, it's just affected for 3 weeks mostly. Not like at the very beginning, just like from summer in last year. People always say, from middle of June until middle of September, there is already no capacity at all in Paris, and people should avoid if you don't have enough budget. This beginning of February, I attended another meeting in Paris, and I was informed by many suppliers that in fact, Paris will be empty from the beginning of July until 20th, and then after 15th of August. And also rates of the hotels are going to be the low season. And I want to make sure if it is true. And maybe somebody can answer me.
I don't know. Keith, did you have it, before I get on to Chris, who I know has got an opinion on this, and I have to declare I have an opinion on this, but it's much more interesting to hear others' points of view. Keith, did you have any, is there any folk memory of the 2012 games in London?
Well, that's been 12 years ago, isn't it? Right. So when we're talking about that, I would remember that that was chaos in London, right? Loads of hotels are trying to sell in a really high price. I mean, before the Olympic Games, but what happens? They end up with they trying to sell that as quick as possible, about 1 or 2 weeks before the Olympic happened, because they think the hotel rooms is difficult to sell. They still got loads of available rooms even across the whole Olympic period. Correct me if I was wrong. I can't really remember that. Sorry for that. But the result I can remember is most of Olympic Games, they actually bring rather low tourism income, I mean, during the Olympic period, because of people actually got the perception like the Olympic Games is gonna fears the price. That's where to somehow expel the tourism out of the area. Correct me if I was wrong, because that's quite a long time for me, and I was not, well, doing tourism as currently I did right now. Well, shameful for speaking that.
No. You have an admirable approach of youth to this. Chris, well, what's your take? I think the real question is not so much what happened in London, because that's history, though it can provide us with a marker as to what's going to be happening this year. I think the real question is, I suppose one, is the Olympic Games a tourism event? And secondly, what impact do you think it will have on regional demand in France?
It's an interesting question, Tom. It's really hard to put a finger on it from outside. A lot of it depends on flight capacity, because the key direct flight into France is Paris. So it's then a question of, is there going to be enough capacity at a nice price to be able to do leisure travel in the regions? Or are people just going to see high pricing flying into Paris and make it easier to go to Italy, Spain, UK? I think, having seen 2012, what you also see is quite late release of rooms to the hotels by the Olympic Committee, which might make it possible to do deals late, but that doesn't really help the groups market. The group market needs a little bit more time. So maybe on our side, the FIT side, we will see some late pickup. But I think for the groups, that's probably going to come too late, and you will see it being in Spain, Italy, and the UK, and other destinations.
No, I mean, for what it's worth, is that it's I think the thing that's different about Paris is that they've sold, or they're saying they've sold 25% of the tickets to non-French nationals. Now, if that is the case, then they've actually got a base of demand for people who will be coming to Paris and looking for accommodation, because normally about 10% of the tickets go to, or of the open sales go to non-domestic, the non-domestic audience. So we're not certain. It just looks as though Paris, which has got the largest hotel room stock in Europe, and it's very difficult to persuade people to come to a destination unless they're specifically going to an Olympic Games. You don't really sell yourself as a tourism destination if an Olympic Games is on, because everybody knows that the prices initially, at any rate, will be very, very high, and you don't want to go and spend double the money to go to a city where an event is occurring to which you're not attending. So it's very bad for non-Olympic visitors, and it's consequently quite bad for long-haul tourism to the regions, because very few people will want to go to a destination and not visit the principal attraction. So it won't be dead. It just will be very, very difficult. And I think you're right. There will be opportunities for last-minute deals, but they will only come through in May, June. They won't come through in the next 6 weeks, in the next 4 to 5 weeks. Okay, have we got any other questions coming in online? I don't think we've got a number of statements. It looks like Adam Wu has come through and said that he did very well in London, which is very good. Glad to hear it. I've got someone saying, Cara from Eurostar, we are also finding that our top agents and groups are avoiding travel to Paris during the Olympic period, unless they're using Paris as a connecting city to travel elsewhere. So that's confirmation from Eurostar that there's a minor problem there. Okay, I've got another question here, which was pre-posed, is how interested are Chinese travelers in sustainability? Is this part of the dialogue that you're having with them? Bing, is sustainability being brought up as one of the criteria that people choose, that use when they're choosing a tour?
Sorry, may you repeat the question?
I'm sorry. How far are your consumers interested in sustainability, in the greenness of your product?
Yeah, it is a little bit late process compared with the American market or European market. Yeah, and just this year, there are still so many uncertain facts, just like when we can have wished flights and so on. That means until now, we may be just until to have our products to end of October. That means from November or December, we haven't prepared yet, because it's really up to so many other facts, just like flights and visas. And
okay, thank you. I mean, Keith, are you finding that people are coming through saying they want slightly more sustainable products, or is this not part of the conversation?
Well, it's quite a tough question. I know that it's actually a fierce topic across the world for the sustainability, and well, I could say that Chinese government already admitted that they're going to be carbon neutral, or say being sustainable by like in 5 years. But currently, I didn't see any obvious trends in the Chinese tourism market toward the sustainable way. But if you're talking about awareness, yes, people do have the awareness. Like they use less plastic or say the disposal amenities, and they bring their own toiletries or say things like that. And if they got away, if they actually have the way, for some like a Chinese airlines, they have the way to say, well, will you buy your carbon footprint and things like that. So I would say they're actually moving toward the good target, but they're still going to take the time.
Excellent, thank you. Rossella, is this something you're finding? Is that this is an evolving question?
Absolutely, and I totally agree with what Keith was saying. People opt now also for different kind of holidays. That's why also this trend we are seeing. I was talking about, Tom, to the rural side, right? This is also due to this new, that they have this new also this awareness about sustainable traveling. That means also they like more nature, right? This is also caused by COVID. And these are the effect that they seeing more this need also. And this will also change their preferences, what kind of traveling they're looking for. And this was before COVID totally different. And this is going into this trend of sustainability. Important to see with whom are they. That's why also they are looking more for the maybe smaller hotels, like boutique hotels, right? That they see, they want more this original one. They're looking for this.
Thank you. Chris.
Exactly the same. It's not the main driver. It is an interest. And for us, we're seeing big growth on our rail product, both within Europe and actually back in China. So rail is becoming a big thing as a eco-friendly way of traveling around countries. That's definitely coming up. We're definitely partnering with experiences that have eco credentials. Someone like Tootbus, who operates the electric vehicle buses in London, is a real key one there.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunities and suppliers are there. But it's not the key driver. The key driver is still revenge travel and people wanting to come back to Europe. Then there's a subset that are interested in being more eco-friendly about it.
Okay. Look, first of all, we've reached our 1 hour limit. Thank you for the questions and comments that are now flooding in on the chat. Some of them answering questions which are posed in the questionnaire. That's very good. We ought to just almost have an open board here. But the nature of Zoom is I don't have a green room with which to thank my panelists. But thank you all very much for a really insightful discussion. And I know we've only just scratched the surface on some of these topics. But you've all been really very generous with your time and your opinion. So thank you on behalf of me, and thank you on behalf of the audience. And also thank you for the audience who've been there all the time as well. So more on this, and don't forget the European marketplace is taking place in China. Okay, everyone, I'm going to leave it at that and say goodbye. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.